Hello and welcome to or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about things that age regression helps with besides trauma and sort of like outside of the PTSD/trauma lens. Obviously, if you know me and you're subscribed to the channel or you've watched or seen my content, you know that I personally struggle with both standard PTSD as well as complex PTSD, and a lot of my regression stems from needing to deal with trauma. But age regression can help with a lot of other things too, so hopefully you will find some part of this video helpful or educational. Before we get started, there are a couple things I want to note. The first one being that I am not a mental health clinician, and anything and everything that I talk about are just examples based on my personal experience, my personal mental health, my personal life, and then also things that I've learned in therapy, as well as things that I've done some degree of research on, but like I said, I am not an expert and I am not a clinician, so just keep that in mind. Second of all, the type of age regression that I'm going to be talking about today is therapeutic age regression. I'm not talking about negative symptomatic regression. If your regression feels primarily negative, symptomatic, or like it's interfering negatively in some way with your day-to-day life and activities, please bring that up with a mental health clinician. I am also not talking about what some people with disorders like dementia experience. I'm also not talking about something that similarly presents itself in some people during psychotic episodes. If you do not know what age regression is, or you would just like to educate yourself further, I do have 2 videos up on my channel that you should probably watch before this one. One of them is called What is Age Regression, and the other one is called My Regression Story. For those who don't know, a lot of people's brains can innately already, just as they are, experience regression, and some people's brains cannot. For other people, regression comes as a symptom of trauma or mental illness that then can be harnessed for therapeutic purposes. If you are someone who cannot personally experience age regression, there is still something that you can get out of this video, and remember that inner child healing and childlike behavior is for everybody. Healthy childlike behavior, obviously. The first thing that regression helps with outside of trauma, for me at least, and some of you I'm sure as well, is burnout or autistic burnout. If you do not know what autistic burnout is, I will just put a little description here. But in terms of like regular standard burnout, that is when you kind of have this complete exhaustion, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And usually it comes from burning yourself out, having too much on your plate, dealing with too much. There's something going on that's so overwhelming that it's kind of causing you to shut down. And during burnout, you might not even feel a desire to go and try to regress, because one of the landmark signs that you're burnt out is not taking pleasure in the things that you normally would and have no motivation, and having no motivation to go and seek those things out. If during burnout you do feel like you want to try and have some regression time, it is something that has been, at least for me, immensely helpful. It really takes you out of your head, and in some cases like out of your life and out of your situation too, and just puts you in this very simple, pure, kind of like blissful, or at least like meditative state, where a lot of the other things going on just kind of fade away into the background. You can really just hone in on the things that make you feel comforted, make you feel soothed, make you feel a sense of joy, or potentially even like nostalgia, and kind of bring you back to a simpler time. The next thing that regression can help with is mindfulness, if you're someone who wants to practice mindfulness, / also just helping yourself be able to be in the moment and appreciate the moment. At least for me, when there's a lot of stress going on, it can be really hard to slow down and just like settle within yourself, take things one day at a time, just be in the moment. And regression really helps me with that. It slows me down, it settles me in, it makes me a lot more focused on what I'm doing, what's going on. It's just it's a much more simple state for your mind to be in, and like I said, it's also very meditative. And you can try to actively involve like a bit more mindfulness practice in with your regression. Like, try to ground yourself. List 5 things around you that you find soothing. Put on some like soothing like lullaby music and really listen to it. Really take a moment to be like, I'm gonna let this carry me and I'm really gonna hear it. Or when you're playing or doing whatever and you're in that regress state, really focus in on what you're doing and let it become your whole moment. And for that, like however long period of time, make that your whole world and your whole focus. Because regression is such a simple and meditative state, the easier mindfulness becomes in your regression, the easier and sort of like muscle memory it will become when you're in your adult state as well. The third thing that regression can help with besides trauma is, at least for me, dealing with chronic illness. I'm not going to elaborate too much on that in this video because I have a whole video on my chronic illness story and how regression helps me with chronic illness and how it might help you too if you suffer from chronic illness and disability. So that will also be linked in the description, and you can also find it on my channel. The next one, and probably the most obvious thing that age regression can help with, is inner child healing and connecting to your inner child. Obviously, when you regress, you are back in the mind state of childhood at, various ages or stages of development. And there really is like no better state to be in when it comes to connecting to your inner child. Whether that be your sense of childlike wonder and joy, whether it just be your childish interests, whether it just be things that make you happy, things that make you feel comfortable, things that just bring you joy in the magical and childlike way that regression can put you in. Next, similarly, regression can also help with strengthening your relationship to yourself. It really is such a vulnerable state, and in that state, so much can come up, so many feelings, so much joy, but also so much potential apprehension. But also, it's really a time to get to know what really soothes you, what really speaks to you, where is sort of like the magic and innocence in life for you. And once you find that in regression, you can really carry that into your day-to-day life. You also might learn when you're kind of like unmasked or when you're out of your adult state, what things really make you happy, what things make you frustrated, what things make you a little sad. Like you'll really see kind of like where all of your emotional kind of trigger points are. And that information, I feel like you can really take with you into your adult state, and especially if you're someone who is in therapy, it's totally something you can bring to your therapist. Similar also to burnout, regression can also help with just general feelings of stress and feeling overwhelmed, especially if those feelings are coming from adult responsibilities, because like I said, it's really a time where all that stuff like that is going on the back burner. And of course, like during regression, one of the things that can make it hard to regress is being like kind of bogged down by those stressors. But the more you practice and the more time and dedication you give it, and the more you allow yourself to be in that state, and the more you allow yourself to feel it and to tell yourself that it's important and that you deserve it and that it's great self-care, the easier it will be to kind of slip into that state and then let the stressors be for later. And the reason, or one of the reasons, that it's so helpful for the feelings of stress and feelings of being overwhelmed is because age regression, when again it's being harnessed therapeutically, you get to a place with it through work where it's just like an overall primarily positive experience. It really helps regulate your nervous system. It really helps with nervous system regulation. That makes sense, right? Because like I said, you're slowing down, you're settling into your body, you can more easily see, like I said, where those emotional trigger points are. You're focusing, you're engaging in things that are innately comforting. Like when you're holding something close to you and it's soft and it's cuddly and it's cute and you're squeezing it and you're maybe even projecting yourself onto it, you're learning to self-soothe, and you're learning to tell your nervous system, like, in these moments when I'm doing these things, this is a time that we can calm down and that we're gonna focus and other things are not gonna like touch this kind of like sacred space. And of course, it can take a lot to get to that place with regression, and I totally like want to acknowledge that it's like, just because you can regress doesn't mean that it's always going to be this like super amazing thing, but it is so helpful, even though it can take a lot of work to get to that place where it is really helpful. But once it is, these are sort of things that you're really going to notice. And for me, nervous system regulation is a really huge one. Next one I kind of already said in that last one, but learning to self-soothe. This one for me at least relates to trauma because that was something that should have been taught to me, but I never had the chance to learn it. And I sort of was in a situation where it was kind of like the opposite is being drilled into me. So it's been really integral because being able to self-soothe is like a really important thing as an adult, or just like as someone who is independent. Like, you really need that ability. Life is really stressful, and if you can't self-soothe, you will start turning to vices and things like that will mask that stress and stuff. But when you can really self-soothe and when you can really trust in yourself to be able to calm yourself down, it can be really helpful. I was doing all sorts to try to calm down and like try to like cover up the stress and try to just like suppress the stress and like the situation and my mental health before I really like learned how to self-soothe and like use my regression for that purpose. And it was just not good. And once you can learn to do that, like, it really makes a really huge difference. And regression is just such a perfect place to learn self-soothing because it's so innately that way. Calming lullaby music, engaging with like positive nostalgic elements from your childhood and things that probably once calmed you down. You know, having things that have some like softness and substance and like huggability to them. Like, it's very much set up to be soothing. Everything is so like calm and playful and like low stakes, and just like, at least for me, it's very settling. Next, and this is kind of mental health specific, but besides trauma, age regression can also help with other mental health disorders and symptoms of them. Regression has been commonly seen in people with things like autism and other neurodivergency, BPD, anxiety disorders, and of course many trauma-based illnesses, PTSD and CPTSD. And lastly, another thing that age regression can help with is learning to play and engage other centers of your brain. So it just like is the perfect place to like round out your brain almost and your nervous system. But for me, for example, like learning to play and like play again and have elements, whether it's like play pretend or just general play, it's been so engaging for me and really like lights up my brain and has like led me to like use parts of my brain that I realized I wasn't using really before I got like well into like my age regression journey. Like, I've become so much more observant. I've been able to like articulate my feelings better. There's just so many things it helps with. Mindfulness, like I said, being able to center in your body, and also just like lets me be able to like have fun which is not something I really personally get much in my day-to-day life, especially dealing with my health and everything. So yeah, those are some of the top things that age regression can help with. Like I said, this is all based on my experience, my research, and my journey with my therapist. That being said, I'm sure there are tons of things I did not cover in this video, and for this video in particular, I would really love if you guys could comment down below some of the things that age regression or the ways age regression helps you in your day-to-day life, and it can be trauma-based or not. I have done like a lot of content around the trauma stuff, so I felt like for this video it would be cool to sort of focus on kind of a broader variety and things that I felt like could appeal or apply to like a lot of people even who don't have like the trauma stuff. So yeah, I would really like to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.